Imagine waking up every morning feeling unsure of yourself, your decisions, your abilities, your worth. It's exhausting, and yet, this is something many of us experience in silence. The question is, how do we move from self-doubt to self-belief? The first step is understanding why you feel insecure. Self-doubt is rarely about what's happening around you. It's about the stories you tell yourself. Maybe you compare yourself to others. Maybe you remember past failures more vividly than your successes. Awareness is the starting point. Once you recognize the patterns of your thinking, you can begin to challenge them. Next, we must shift the narrative. Imagine your mind as a stage and your thoughts as actors. Who tells the story of your life? Is it the critic who says, "You're not good enough," or the guide who whispers, "You can learn and grow"? Every time you question the negative voice and replace it with a constructive one, you weaken insecurity and strengthen confidence. But awareness and mindset alone are not enough. Action is the catalyst for belief. Start small. Set a tiny goal that feels just outside your comfort zone. Achieve it, celebrate it, then take the next step. Confidence is like a muscle. It grows stronger with repeated intentional use. The more you act despite doubt, the less power it has over you. That your environment shapes your mindset. Surround yourself with people who see your potential and are honest enough to guide you. Seek feedback, mentorship, and encouragement. Isolation amplifies insecurity, but connection and perspective diminish it. Overcoming self-doubt and insecurity isn't about eliminating fear, it's about acknowledging it, questioning it, and taking consistent steps forward despite it. It's about choosing growth over comfort, action over hesitation, and belief over self-limiting stories. When you do this, you don't just build confidence. You create a life where self-doubt exists, but it no longer controls you. Understanding the root cause of self-doubt begins with asking yourself a simple but profound question. Why do I feel this way? Most people experience insecurity or hesitation and immediately attempt to suppress it, distract themselves from it, or ignore it. We look for quick fixes, reassurance from others, temporary achievements, or avoidance of challenging situations. Yet, these solutions rarely last because they address only the surface symptoms, not the underlying causes. Self-doubt is rarely born from external circumstances alone. It emerges from the stories we carry about ourselves, often rooted in our past experiences, internalized beliefs, or repeated patterns of thinking. Without identifying the why, any attempt to build confidence is like patching a leak in a dam without addressing the cracks that caused it in the first place. To truly explore the why, start by reflecting on specific moments when self-doubt arises. It may appear in your professional life when you hesitate to share your ideas in a meeting, in your personal life when you question your worthiness of love or friendship, or even in your private thoughts when you anticipate failure before attempting something new. Each instance is a clue pointing toward deeper beliefs. Ask yourself, what triggers this feeling? What thought runs through my mind the moment I feel inadequate? Often self-doubt is not rational. It is a conditioned response, a mental pattern developed over years of experiences and messages received from the world around us. By observing these triggers without judgment, you create space to understand your insecurities rather than react impulsively to them. Exploring the why also involves examining your past. Childhood experiences, family dynamics, societal expectations, and formative events often leave imprints that shape self-perception. Perhaps you grew up receiving praise only for achievements rather than effort, creating a belief that worth is conditional. Perhaps you encountered criticism that overshadowed encouragement, teaching you to doubt your abilities automatically. These experiences become mental shortcuts so that when faced with challenges, your mind defaults to self-criticism. Recognizing these origins is not about blaming the past. It is about acknowledging how patterns have formed and how they continue to influence present behavior. Awareness alone weakens the automatic grip of self-doubt because a thought only controls us when we accept it as truth without scrutiny. Another essential aspect of identifying the why is distinguishing between internal beliefs and external comparisons. Society constantly bombards us with images of success, perfection, and achievement. It is easy to internalize these standards and measure your worth against them. These comparisons often magnify insecurity instead of providing insight. True understanding comes when you stop asking, "Am I as good as others?" and start asking, "Why do I question my own abilities?" The difference is subtle but crucial. One question centers on external validation, while the other centers on self-awareness and internal exploration. By reframing the question, you shift from reactive doubt to proactive investigation, positioning yourself to make meaningful changes. Journaling or reflective exercises can be invaluable in this process. Writing down moments of insecurity, associated thoughts, and emotional responses allows patterns to emerge that may not be obvious in the immediacy of experience. For example, you might notice that self-doubt often occurs when taking on new responsibilities, during interactions with authority figures, or when faced with uncertainty. Once identified, these patterns guide you to the specific beliefs or fears at the core of the doubt. Is it fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of inadequacy? Naming these fears removes ambiguity, gives them form, and empowers you to challenge them. Understanding the why equips you to address the root cause rather than reacting to symptoms, creating a foundation for long-term growth and resilience. Starting with why cultivates a mindset of curiosity instead of self-criticism. It encourages you to approach self-doubt as a puzzle to solve rather than a flaw to hide. Asking why repeatedly is not about overthinking or indulging in negativity. It is about gathering information, building insight, and fostering self-awareness. With each layer uncovered, you move closer to understanding yourself, your motivations, and the beliefs that limit you. Awareness brings choice. When you know why self-doubt arises, you are no longer a passive participant in your own insecurity. You gain the ability to question, challenge, and ultimately transform the beliefs that have held you back for so long. Shifting the narrative begins with understanding that self-doubt is a story you tell yourself, not an objective truth. The human mind has a remarkable ability to create internal scripts, repetitive thought patterns that define how we perceive ourselves, our abilities, and our potential. Often, these scripts are negative, critical, or limiting, and they become so ingrained that we accept them as fact. We might think, "I am not talented enough, I always fail," or "I don't deserve success." These statements are not truths. They are interpretations shaped by past experiences, societal pressures, and learned behaviors. Recognizing that self-doubt is a narrative allows us to step back and examine the story being told. Once we identify it, we can take deliberate steps to rewrite it. The first step in shifting the narrative is developing awareness of your inner dialogue. This requires mindfulness, the ability to observe your thoughts without immediate judgment or reaction. When you notice the critic in your mind, do not try to suppress it. Instead, pause and examine what it is saying when it appears and why. Ask yourself, is this thought based on evidence or assumption? For example, if you think, "I'm going to fail this project," examine past experiences. Have you failed every similar project, or have there been successes as well? Most often, the negative voice exaggerates risk and overlooks evidence of competence and capability. Awareness transforms the critic from an uncontrollable force into a subject for investigation. Once awareness is established, the next step is challenging the story. Identify the unhelpful or inaccurate elements of yourself. Talk and question their validity. This is not about blind optimism or ignoring reality. It's about replacing distorted thinking with balanced and constructive perspectives. For instance, if your mind says, "I'm not creative," challenge it by recalling moments when you demonstrated creativity, problem solving, or innovation. evidence of past success undermines the strength of the negative narrative. By systematically questioning and reframing the story, you weaken its control over your emotions, behaviors, and decisions. Rewriting the narrative also involves choosing language that empowers rather than diminishes. Words have extraordinary power in shaping thought and action. Phrases such as "I am learning," "I am capable of growth," and "I can improve with effort" reinforce a growth-oriented mindset. They replace fear and limitation with possibility and action. Over time, the repeated use of constructive language retrains the mind, gradually replacing self-doubt with confidence. The narrative shift does not occur overnight. It requires consistent practice, self-reflection, and intentional reinforcement of positive patterns. However, even small changes in internal dialogue create ripple effects in behavior, decision making, and resilience. Another critical aspect of shifting the narrative is embracing failure as feedback instead of evidence of inadequacy. The old narrative of "I failed, therefore I am not good enough" is destructive and inaccurate. Rewriting the story reframes failure as an essential part of growth and learning. Each setback becomes data, a lesson that informs the next attempt. This perspective reduces the fear of failure, allowing you to act with courage and experimentation rather than hesitation. By changing the way you interpret outcomes, you shift the narrative from one of limitation to one of progress, from judgment to curiosity. Shifting the narrative also requires examining the influences around you. The stories we tell ourselves are often reinforced by the media we consume, the people we interact with, and the environments we inhabit. If you surround yourself with negativity, criticism, or constant comparison, the internal narrative becomes harder to change. Conversely, exposure to positive influences, role models, and supportive communities strengthens the story you want to tell yourself. Intentionally selecting what and who you allow to shape your thoughts is an essential component of narrative transformation. Visualization and storytelling techniques can further accelerate the process. Imagine your ideal self, someone confident, capable, and resilient. Picture how they respond to challenges, setbacks, and criticism. Then begin practicing that narrative in your own mind. Writing your story, recording affirmations, or mentally rehearsing successful outcomes can embed these patterns into your subconscious. The more vividly and consistently you practice the narrative you want, the more your mind accepts it as plausible and real. Eventually, the negative, limiting story loses its grip because it is replaced by a stronger, more empowering one. Shifting the narrative is a continuous process, not a one-time event. Life will present new challenges, stressors, and triggers that may reignite old doubts. The key is to return to awareness, reflection, and reframing whenever they arise. Each time you challenge a negative thought and replace it with a constructive one, you strengthen the mental pathways that support confidence, self-belief, and resilience. Over time, what once felt automatic, the story of self-doubt, becomes optional, while the story of growth, capability, and potential becomes the default. Confidence is not a switch you can flip. It is a muscle that strengthens through repeated, intentional effort. The moment you step into action, even in small ways, you create evidence of capability that challenges the narratives of self-doubt. Many people wait for perfect conditions, the ideal moment, or complete certainty before taking action, but this mindset reinforces insecurity. Waiting teaches the brain to associate hesitation with safety and action with risk, which strengthens fear and doubt. By contrast, taking small, consistent steps breaks this cycle. It signals to your mind that action is possible, manageable, and ultimately rewarding, which gradually replaces fear with confidence. Starting small is crucial because attempting massive changes too quickly often triggers overwhelm, which reinforces self-doubt. Small actions are manageable, measurable, and repeatable. They allow you to experiment, learn, and adjust without the pressure of perfection. For example, if public speaking triggers insecurity, A small first step could be speaking in front of a mirror, recording a short video, or sharing your thoughts with a trusted friend. Each step may feel insignificant in isolation, but cumulatively they build competence, reduce fear, and create momentum. Small wins function as proof that you are capable, directly challenging the belief that you are not. Consistency matters as much as the size of the action. Confidence grows not from isolated successes, but from repeated experiences that reinforce capability over time. Taking small actions consistently creates a pattern that trains your mind to expect competence and achievement. Imagine planting seeds daily. One day, you notice a tree has grown. Similarly, consistent effort cultivates habits of courage and competence that transform self-doubt into assurance. The brain responds to repeated success by rewiring itself, strengthening neural pathways associated with mastery and resilience, while weakening pathways tied to fear and hesitation. Each action, no matter how small, should carry intention. Random effort does little to shift the mental patterns that maintain insecurity. Before acting, clarify what you hope to accomplish and what skill, belief, or experience you are aiming to develop. For example, if insecurity arises when contributing ideas at work, set a goal to speak up at least once during a meeting. The purpose is not to be perfect or impress others, but to demonstrate to yourself that you can engage, contribute, and handle outcomes. Intentional actions create measurable evidence of growth, which fuels self-belief and diminishes self-doubt over time. Failure and mistakes are natural within this process, and they are not signs of inadequacy. Small, consistent actions provide the safety to fail forward. Each attempt, even if imperfect, teaches a lesson, sharpens skills, and reinforces the habit of persistence. This process reframes failure from a source of fear into a source of learning. Rather than avoiding risk, you become comfortable with experimentation, understanding that each effort, regardless of the immediate outcome, strengthens your ability to succeed in the future. This mindset is the foundation for resilience, turning setbacks into stepping stones. Tracking progress amplifies the effect of small actions. Recording your efforts, achievements, and reflections helps you see how far you've come. Often, self-doubt persists because we underestimate our progress, focusing only on what hasn't been achieved. By documenting incremental improvements, you create a tangible record that reinforces your capabilities. Over time, looking back at consistent effort provides undeniable evidence that challenges the inner voice of insecurity. What once seemed impossible now becomes achievable, and what once caused hesitation now inspires confidence. Another important aspect is breaking larger goals into micro-actions. Big objectives, like launching a business, completing a project, or learning a new skill, and feel intimidating and trigger paralysis. Dividing these goals into smaller, actionable steps transforms them into a series of achievable tasks. For example, instead of aiming to write a full book in a month, focus on writing 1 page a day. Each page is progress, each day builds momentum, and each step reinforces your ability to follow through. The accumulation of small, consistent actions eventually achieves the larger vision without overwhelming the mind or triggering doubt. Accountability enhances consistency. Sharing your small steps with a mentor, friend, or supportive community creates external reinforcement. Others can provide encouragement, perspective, and feedback, helping you stay on track. Accountability transforms small actions from isolated efforts into shared commitments, increasing the likelihood of follow-through. Even knowing that someone else will witness your progress motivates you to act, which reinforces competence and gradually erodes insecurity. The principle of taking small, consistent actions is empowering because it puts control back in your hands. Self-doubt thrives when we feel helpless or passive, waiting for circumstances to change or permission to act. Action shifts the locus of control from external forces to your own efforts. Each deliberate step, no matter how small, becomes a declaration that you are capable, proactive, and committed to growth. Over time, these actions compound, reshaping both perception and reality, proving that self-belief is not a static trait but a skill cultivated through deliberate, consistent practice. The environment you create around yourself has a profound influence on self-doubt and insecurity. Human beings are inherently social creatures, and the people we interact with, the feedback we receive, and the energy we absorb from our surroundings shape the way we perceive ourselves. Surrounding yourself with supportive, encouraging individuals is not just about positive reinforcement. It is about creating a feedback loop that fosters growth, resilience, and self-confidence. When you are surrounded by negativity, criticism, or indifference, self-doubt is amplified, making it more difficult to trust your abilities and take risks. Conversely, supportive environments provide perspective, guidance, and validation that reinforce your potential and help you navigate challenges with confidence. Support comes in many forms, starting with personal relationships. Friends, family, or mentors who genuinely care about your growth provide encouragement when self-doubt surfaces. They remind you of your strengths, celebrate your achievements, and help you see your value when your mind focuses on shortcomings. This external reinforcement strengthens internal belief systems because humans naturally internalize consistent feedback from trusted sources. When someone you respect tells you, "You are capable of this," it has a far greater impact than repeated self-reassurance alone. Supportive relationships act as mirrors that reflect back your potential, even when your own mind is clouded by insecurity. Mentorship is particularly powerful because it combines support with guidance. A mentor not only believes in your ability to succeed but also offers practical advice and strategies to navigate challenges. They have often faced similar doubts themselves and can provide a perspective that reduces fear and uncertainty. Mentors help you identify blind spots, recognize opportunities for growth, and celebrate incremental successes. Their presence reassures you that self-doubt is natural and temporary, not an inherent limitation. By learning from someone who has walked the path before you, you gain both confidence and a roadmap for moving forward. Constructive feedback is an essential component of growth, even though it may initially trigger discomfort. Feedback provides objective information that helps you improve, refine skills, and strengthen weaknesses. The key is to distinguish between feedback that is constructive and feedback that is destructive. Constructive feedback is specific, actionable, and delivered with the intention of helping you grow. It allows you to focus on areas of improvement without internalizing criticism as a reflection of your worth. When you actively seek feedback from trustworthy sources, you transform potential insecurity into an opportunity for learning, which directly undermines self-doubt and fosters self-assurance. Equally important is learning to filter your environment. Not every voice is helpful, and not every opinion deserves attention. People who consistently undermine, belittle, or compare you to others amplify insecurity rather than supporting growth. Recognizing and limiting exposure to these influences is a critical skill. Protecting your mental and emotional space allows the voices of encouragement and constructive guidance to resonate more clearly. Boundaries are not just protective measures, they are proactive steps that create a fertile environment for confidence and self-belief to flourish. Communities, both professional and personal, play a vital role in shaping self-perception. Surrounding yourself with like-minded, growth-oriented individuals creates a culture of encouragement and accountability. When you see others take risks, fail, learn, and succeed, it normalizes the process of growth and reinforces the idea that your journey is possible. Sharing experiences within a community provides perspective, reduces feelings of isolation, and fosters resilience. Collective energy and shared purpose amplify individual belief, creating a network effect that strengthens confidence over time. Another crucial aspect of support is reciprocal engagement. Supporting others in their growth not only benefits them, but reinforces your own confidence and capability. Mentoring, offering encouragement, or sharing knowledge allows you to recognize your own strengths and contributions. Helping others navigate challenges reminds you of your ability to overcome obstacles, increasing self-efficacy and reducing insecurity. Contribution creates a sense of purpose, which is a powerful antidote to self-doubt. Technology and digital spaces also influence the support we receive. Online communities, professional networks, and learning platforms can provide guidance, resources, and encouragement, but they can also amplify comparison and insecurity if consumed uncritically. Curating digital interactions to prioritize supportive growth. Focused content ensures that even virtual environments contribute positively to self-confidence. This intentionality in digital spaces mirrors the broader principle of consciously choosing influences in your life. Surrounding yourself with support and feedback transforms self-doubt from an internal struggle into a shared challenge. It creates a scaffolding that allows you to take risks, experiment, and pursue growth without being paralyzed by insecurity. The presence of trusted voices, constructive criticism, and positive role models reinforces your belief in your abilities, provides guidance during uncertainty, and encourages persistence despite setbacks. In this way, the environment you cultivate is not just a backdrop for action. It is an active agent in reshaping your mindset, dissolving self-doubt, and building a foundation for lasting confidence.